Oh, I might as well. So my buddy Brent is texting me right now, and he says, I love my job. I really do. But you have the best job. You get to live out Festivus every day and get paid for it. I'm about to. I have a real problem with some of these old school conservative organizations who have ceased to perform a useful purpose for many people. I stopped being supportive of the NRA and decided there were other Second Amendment groups that were far more willing and able to put points on the board. Chris Cox of the NRA was involved with the political side of the NRA, and essentially when he raised concerns, they pushed him out. The NRA used to be a massive force for Second Amendment rights in the country, and they're really not anymore. They live off their name. They live off their brand, and I have such a problem with so many groups on the right these days with the same people in charge who have been there for 30 or 40 years, and they're just living off their name. They're not actually putting points on the board anymore. They're just there, and the donors write them checks all the time because they write checks to the brand, but the brand doesn't do anything anymore. And I think the NRA is one of those groups, frankly. I don't think the NRA is very good at its job anymore, and it used to be fantastic, and it still does some good with training and certification and firearm schools, but actually putting points on the board for gun rights anymore, there are plenty of better groups out there that will defend the Second Amendment and gun owners of America. And yeah, Gun Owners of America is a good group. But it's not just the NRA. I look at what's happening with CPAC, where you've got, scandal. You've got very prominent, notable conservatives have left the organization raising red flags about the conduct of the present leadership. And it's no longer the Conservative Political Action Conference. It is the Trump Political Action Conference. Whether you like Donald Trump or not, this isn't a criticism of Donald Trump. Don't hear it that way. Some of you get very defensive. Conservatism actually means something. Now, you can say it's no good. What does conservatism conserve? I'm a populist. I'm not conservative, whatever. But the Conservative Political Action Conference used to be a place where conservatives could go to talk about conservative policy and the advancement of the conservative agenda. And now it's part of a cult of personality. Most of Trump's most prominent supporters now say they're not even conservatives. They're populists or they're nationalists or conservatism hasn't done anything. That's fine. If you think conservatism is crap, that's fine. But this is supposed to be the Conservative Political Action Conference. It's not for you. It's for conservatives. And yet, what does it do? And now you got all the scandals and lawsuits involving the leadership at CPAC and the American Conservative Union. What's the point? What's the point of it? They get checks from old people who don't know any better, and they live off that. They grift off that is what they do. I was very disappointed a number of years ago when there's the massive turmoil at the National Rifle Association, and they pushed out the competent people. And it was very clear they pushed out the competent people. And what it was is there were a bunch of people on the board. The red flags were raised by Ollie North and others that there was impropriety going on, and the same sets of people just decided to back the same sets of people, and it was a bunch of old people. Honestly, it was a bunch of seasoned citizens, we'll say respectfully, who want to go along to get along, who didn't want to rock the boat and just couldn't realize there was a problem. And they opened themselves to liability. Yes, they were absolutely targeted by the Attorney General of New York, but they made it so easy to be targeted, and they didn't have to. And time again, we see this in the conservative movement, and I'm sure it will happen in the progressive movement. But the progressive movement institutionally over time it's taken them longer to establish these outside groups that are of any value and meaning. They have some of the old groups out there, but those groups, look, probably one of the best examples is the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is just an absolutely insane group of ill repute right now. It used to be a group that put points on the board, and very few people take it seriously anymore outside the left. At this point, the NRA is just something the left prattles on about and has no idea that it's not actually an effective institution on the right anymore. I don't know that the American Conservative Union is an effective institution. I think CPAC is a waste of time. And I don't say that because I got a competing conference. I got a competing conference because I've been thinking CPAC's been crap for a while. And then you've got like Turning Point USA and Charlie Kirk's group. And y'all, I just think that's a bunch of a grifting society. When you pay attention to some of the stories that have come out about how much money they're making off of this, I'm sorry, but if you can afford, I'm in talk radio. I know what people in talk radio make. If you got multi-million-dollar houses, you're not getting that off your talk radio salary. I mean, his particular syndicator's on the verge of bankruptcy anyway. There's no way. Money's got to be coming from somewhere, and it sounds like it's coming from TPUSA. It certainly does from the Associated Press reporting. These groups are just, to me, there are a bunch of people on the right, and this is what happens, and I mean this lovingly, not disrespectfully. There are a bunch of older, retired conservatives who want young conservatives to get involved, and they find out about these groups that promise to bring young people in, and they will write a check in a heartbeat. And the money goes to fund the parties of the people involved in the organizations, and they don't actually put any points on the board. The idea, for example, that TPUSA needs $100 million to fund a ballot access campaign in 3 states is garbage. As someone who's run ballot access campaigns, $100 million, you could fund the entire national get-out-the-vote apparatus. But they don't want you to know that. They think, well, we're young and we can do it better. No, you're not. You're spending $100 million in 3 states, you're going to get bigger houses and better boats. And it's the same thing with the NRA. Wayne LaPierre, I mean, best we can tell from the litigation and the documents uncovered, wardrobes, travel, private jets, things like that. Look, I want to fly in a private jet too. But I wouldn't, as the head of a nonprofit, use the nonprofit to fund my lifestyle. And too many of these groups on the right are doing it. Y'all, I'm deeply concerned that too many of you well-meaning people are writing checks to and funding organizations on the right. You think you're making a difference, and you are being ripped off by a bunch of grifters. And I say this because you got to be more discerning. Because I'm afraid that in the last number of years, what we've seen on the conservative side is a bunch of people prop up institutions, and they've decided they are get-rich-quick schemes. In the meantime, you think they're actually doing good stuff, and they're not. And it's the grifters are crowding out the good groups. The grifters are crowding out the people who are putting points on the board. We actually do need great outside organizations to put points on the board, to advance the cause, to do ballot collection, to advance the Second Amendment, to protect citizens, to advance the ideas of the conservative movement. And I think we're being disserved by sclerotic institutions that are rotting from the inside out. And at some point, they will fall over. And the gust of wind that may push them over may very well be a second Biden administration. If he gets another term, you know he's coming after these conservative groups, just like the New York Attorney General has done to the NRA. There will be targets on all their backs, and many of them will fall over because they have taken shortcuts. They have abused the trust of their donors, and it won't be persecution of the left. It will be the left targeting them, knowing how vulnerable they are. And too many of you won't believe it when the facts come out about how they've wasted your money. There are great groups out there. You know, I'm thinking of the Heritage Foundation. I don't want to drag Kevin Roberts and the Heritage Foundation into this, but the Heritage Foundation is a group that has revitalized itself repeatedly. And Kevin Roberts, the president of the Heritage Foundation, is not only a great guy and a good scholar, but he's doing a very good job of trying to thread the needle. And by the way, Kevin is getting a ton of hate from conservatives, like, why are you bringing these people in? And why are you allowing this to happen? Because Kevin understands that the conservative movement has evolved over time, has expanded and broadened, and that some of the debates we have now we weren't having then, but we should have those debates within an institution like the Heritage Foundation so they can play out. And he's done a fantastic job of navigating that, revitalizing an institution that was getting a little bit too big for its britches. He's done a fantastic job of it. I'm a big Kevin Roberts fan. But then you got like the NRA that has essentially choked out all the fresh blood that wanted to do new things, better things, and more effective things, and gone with the status quo. And then you've got the American Conservative Union, where it just sounds like it's lobbyists lobbying and a cult of personality and doing things they shouldn't do and having conferences that really don't generate anything other than scandal these days. I mean, what's the point? If we're going to be giving our money to institutions so that they can live in the lap of luxury and not actually put points on the board for the conservative movement, what is the point? Not of conservatism, but of a group of people and a donor class of conservatives who fund this stuff so that we're paying for people to have a good time while America itself starts to smolder. We either put points on the board or we don't. And a lot of these institutions, they're just not putting points on the board anymore. They're just allowing their executives, officers, and friends to live a lavish lifestyle. If we don't clean house, the other side will. I would prefer that we on our side clean up our institutions.
You're listening to the